Okay, guys, let's get into this real quick. So here's the deal. These are essentially 4 signs that you won't likely do well at your Social Security disability hearing. Now, I'm just going to read to you exactly what the bullet points are, but then I'm going to go through each one because some people, they just want to know the quick information right up front. They don't want to know the analysis, and I get it, but the analysis is really the important part. But anyways, for those people who need it right now, I'm going to give you the things, the details, the bullet points right away. Number 1, you leave 3-minute voicemails. Number 2, you forget where you were in conversations and can't remember the original prompt or question that started the conversation. Number 3, you have knee-jerk aggressive responses. Number 4, you have an ego, the most dangerous of disability claimants. And number 5, you have tech limitations. So let's go back now. Now you have them. Now let's go back and do an analysis as to how they take place when doing a Social Security disability hearing. Now, some disability hearings are in person. Some are video telephonic from an SSA hearing office. Some are video telephonic from a home office or a home, just a room. And then some are just telephonic. Now, just as a side note, a little bonus, if you will, some people have difficulty with their phones where they live in an area where there's a lot of noise around them. One of the best things you can do for a disability hearing is to actually go ahead and have that hearing in a bathroom. Telephonic. If it's video telephonic, you're obviously going to need a desk. But the reason the bathroom is so good is that you can actually put over the top of a shower curtain a blanket, and that'll help deaden sound from people doing things around you. And you can usually hang something off the door with one of those, off the door little hangers and put a blanket around there. That way you get some better audio. And the reason why is, very simply put, you're supposed to be in a separate room away from everybody. Not everybody has an extra separate room, but almost everybody has a bathroom. Cool. Now, with that said, you leave 3-minute voicemails. Oh, don't forget, don't be stingy with the likes. Please don't be stingy with the likes. I see Susan Sells, first one on there. Very cool, very cool. These videos are live, which is awesome. With that said, I have my phone hearing tomorrow. That's big. All the best, all the absolute best in luck. That's amazing. So super duper the best. Now, here's the deal. You leave 3-minute voicemails. Story mode is my polite way of saying you just can't answer the question. You just go off and off and off. Now, story mode comes in many ways, many fashions. Some people can't control what they say when it comes to specific details. Some people can't control what they say when it comes to just having to talk more after somebody else hasn't responded. Like you'll be talking with somebody, and if that one person is quiet who's receiving the information, the other person will keep talking and talking and talking and talking just to fill the void. There's all different types of story mode. You can't do story mode. When you approach doing these hearings, it's like answering questions that a police officer would essentially bring forward to you. So, for example, if you were to answer a question with more than 1 or 2 sentences, you're probably doing too much information. The judge is usually asking a simple, straightforward question. And if it's a story question, you shouldn't be going over 3 or 4 sentences because there's such a limited amount of time to give your testimony. You get 45 minutes per hearing. So your testimony should be somewhere between 20 to 25 minutes during that, because there's still the intro portion where all the administrative stuff has to happen. There's still the large hypothetical expert portion and the outro. So remember, you get like 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to go ahead and get out there what you want to say. The claimants, just so you guys understand, that really stretch it out and make the disability attorney or the disability judge stay there for 2 hours, all you're doing is angering the judge. That's the bottom line. And it also proves that you really haven't had a prepared, proper case to bring in front of the judge, because if you feel that your hearing should last that long, then you're not really getting asked the right questions and you're not really answering the questions correctly. Another thing, many people are not educated on how to answer a question at all. Sounds weird. Sounds very weird that people would not know how to answer a question. But the reality is that if you were to write something down and then you were to answer it when you wrote down the answer, and then you were to write it down 10 more times. So you start at the top of the paper, you're writing down your answer, you fill up half a page, you write it 10 more times, and then your answer gets to a single sentence that's not very long. That's the reality of being able to answer a question, being able to, from your brain, create, verbiage and explain what is going on and answer that question immediately. Crucial. Okay. Number 2, you forget where you were in the conversation. You can't remember the original prompt or question that started the conversation. So here's the deal. A lot of judges, they've got time limits, right? So when you go into that hearing, a lot of claimants are like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to spend time doing that. Da, da, da. If you are not sure where you're at with explaining something, time yourself on your phone. See if you can go ahead and explain it within 3 to 4 sentences and how long the sentences are. Some of you guys go, these sentences are super run-on sentences. They never end. They're always going. They're ridiculous. But That's something you have to be very aware of and careful with. Now, when you forget where you're at in the conversation, that's a lot of individuals with memory issues, a lot of individuals with mental impairments. Very common for those types who basically go and try to file for anything from trauma to the brain, they were in a car accident, or perhaps, they have PTSD and the brain keeps relapsing over things and saying, okay, I don't want to remember this, so I'll go here. I don't want to remember this, so I'll go here, right? Don't want to have the flashback of that, so I'll go over here with my brain. I won't look into this box, I'll only stay over in this corner. And when you do that, what happens is that unfortunately, a lot of people's brains will reset and they'll forget where they're at. Now, you can always ask the judge, Your Honor, I forget what the question is. But a technique you should be using, and this is more of a technique for essentially, because remember, if you go to an in-person hearing, they sometimes make you take all the paper off the desk, take your phone off the desk, so you can't write stuff down, you can't take notes. One of the tactics that you should be doing, if you're allowed to do a video telephonic hearing, a telephonic hearing with no video. That's where they can't see you. They don't get that advantage, just see what you look like. One of the things you can do is that you can have a piece of paper in front of you and you can write down one important word from each question. And I guarantee you, if you write down one important word from each question, right, you will be able to, boom, hit that right there again. Your brain will focus onto what that word is. Now, when you do this, it's important, of course, to have, for example, an earpiece or to have it on speakerphone. Because when you're holding it with one hand, trying to write with the other, too much is going on. You need both hands available to you when you do these hearings. Now, let me give an example of that. One word from each question. I want you guys to go ahead and pick out one word from each one of these questions and write it down in the chat section so that I can see what you think is the most important thing to trigger your memory to work with these questions. Number one. Okay, so we're just going to make one up. Can you explain to me why are you unable to do at-home functions such as cooking, cleaning, or laundry? That's number one. Can you explain to me why are you unable to do at-home functions such as cooking, cleaning, or laundry? Okay. Remember, that question comes straight from an Orlando ALJ. She uses it all the time. Next one, number two. What is it that you're able to do when you wake up versus not able to do when you wake up? Showering, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, things like that. What is it that you're able to do when you wake up versus what you're not able to do when you wake up, such as showering, brushing your teeth, or getting dressed? That's question number two. Let's do another one. Pull the word out, just one word. Can you explain to me, when it comes to things in the environment, such as hot, cold, dust, loud sounds, vibrations, bright lights, which things trigger your impairments? Once again, can you explain to me of things that are in the environment, such as hot, cold, loud sounds, bright lights, vibrations, pulmonary irritants? What things seem to trigger your impairments? We'll do one more question. One more question. Here we go. Next one. All right, next one. So why did you stop working where you did? And can you explain to me what was the culture like just before you left and then after you left? Walk me through when you were working, the last job that you had. What was the culture like with them before you left and then after you left? Pick out that one word. There you go. There you go. There you go. Very good, guys. You're doing well. You're doing very well. That's good. Limitations, chronic pain, stiffness, sensory triggers, environment. Very, very good. That's amazing. So the point is, if you can pick out one word from each question and just boop, write it down real quick. And it doesn't take much time. Like if you hear the question, just walk me through why are you not able to cook, clean, or do laundry? And you put down cooking, right? On that piece of paper, just COOKING. Boom, cooking. Done. Then your brain can instantly hit that because it's like an auto trigger to your brain to know to go ahead and hit that particular topic. So it's an important tactic to use for people who just can't have that conversation in their head and remember what was going on. Use that. Number three, you have knee-jerk aggressive responses. Now, these come in all kinds of ways. Some people get triggered where all of a sudden they start getting louder. Some people get triggered and all of a sudden they'll say something snippy. Some people get triggered and they'll start to withdraw from the conversation, fold their arms, sit there angry, stuff like that. Some people get triggered And basically, their whole push, their whole focus is then looking for a weakness in the judge or staring down the judge, stuff like that, doing like these cues with their body to like send hatred over there. And so, what you have to understand with this whole knee jerk aggressive response, some people do not have good understandings of when they should be protective of themselves and potentially aggressive towards somebody else. Some people get very upset right away. They might, key phrases that say, I'm upset with you are like, well, I disagree with you. That's insulting to me. How dare you? Why would you say something like that? Those little key phrases are really important, that you've got to control those with the judge. Because remember, at the end of the day, you have to feed as much as you can to the judge, and getting pissy with the judge, being aggressive towards the judge, really trying to harm the judge's, day is not going to fix your life. It's just not. You could say, well, that's my disability. And some people actually have hostility, aggressiveness in their record where they've blown up many times. But I guarantee you, if you don't have a police report where basically they had to go ahead and the police interact with you as a result of your aggression, you probably are not at that level that realistically they're looking for. I mean, there's many situations where you might be, but they're probably not at that level where if a police report wasn't ever made as a result of your hostility, you're probably not at that level. Or you might live in a very, very bubble-oriented situation, right, where you're protected in a bubble. Next one, you have an ego, the most dangerous of disability claimants. Some disability claimants, and I steer clear of them. I don't want to hire them. I don't want to work with them. I don't have to deal with them. I steer clear of them. When you get disability claimants who have an ego, this like, I am amazing, you run into every potential problem. People with massive egos are never good clients. Never. There's never a good client with a super ego. The super ego always gets in the way because instead of working as a team to accomplish things, they're always trying to impress upon you that they're an amazing person and you should bow down to them. That's the whole point of the ego issue, right? So let me go through some of these basics. Let's say you may have an ego if you think you shouldn't need to get a lesser job. Classic one, right? So if a claimant will say, yeah, but I was a doctor. I should just only have to be considered against other jobs such as a doctor because of my certifications. That ego is very, very, very scary for a disability attorney because when we hear that, we know that there's this whole built up franchise in their head about how amazing they are. And as a result of that, you basically are fighting this monster of a thing inside them that is just such a pain in the ass to get around. It's just such a pain. And the thing is this, like the disability benefit system, just for you guys who don't know, they expect you to get the least, difficult, no stress, whatever job that's available that's full time, right? And you might have been a lawyer before, you might have been an accountant before, you might have been a director of this, a CEO of that, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And when that happens, unfortunately, you get stuck in your head that I'm going this way, I'll never go this way. But that's not how life works. Some people make it through their entire career and they're constantly going up. Some people do this. That's just life. That's just life, right? It's just how it is. So bottom line is watch out for that. Or another thing is that a lot of people who have an ego, they'll be like, okay, well, I am due something from this world. Like the world owes me something. And that's part of that whole like classic, I am a victim. My victim tiers are, right here. I'd like to exchange them for things, blah, blah, blah. That victimhood, that victim situation has been bred into people for some reason. I'm not sure how it got there. I'm not sure why it's staying. But, everybody knows that the victim thing, it's unless you have a real reason to say I was a victim, the car hit me, somebody shot me, somebody, cut me with a knife, or I was doing this in my job and got radiation and now I have cancer. Unless you're a victim, you know what I mean? And I understand some people have victimhood where it's like, this just happened to them out of nowhere. What the hell? But you have to understand too, you can't reflect and expect other people to have to give you something as a result of that, unless they're medical providers trying to keep you healthy, alive, etc. So, you just have to be very careful with that, because when you do that victimhood stuff with the judge, where you go, I just don't understand why, I just don't understand. It shouldn't be like, when you do that stuff, you're wasting A, time in your hearing to get good testimony on the record, and B, you're putting the judge in a tough spot of having to waste more time to explain to you the way the world works. Next one. or that you worked hard and now the government needs to back the rest of your life. That's how it sounds to the judges more so than not. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of them, but that from my communications with them, that's more of it. The judges are there to dictate whether you're medically disabled, not whether you deserve it because you've worked hard. You know what I mean? Because remember, a lot of the judges sitting there are veterans who basically are disabled, who are on top of that disability, also working as a judge to decide claims. So, just as a heads up, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you're not going to get massive amounts of pity from those individuals. So thank you, Shirley, for the 99-cent donation. Super appreciate it. That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Very, very good. Very, very good. So with that said, let me go on to the next one right here, which is okay. Or that you always have a right okay. So some people always have to be right in the conversation, and some people get pissy and they're like, well, what about this and what about that? And then they spend time basically thinking it over, and they're like, okay, yeah, I guess I go this way, or okay, I go that way. And some people, they just get pissy, and no matter what, they have to be right. They have to be right. And that's part of just growing as an adult. You realize you're not always right. You're always growing. You never stop learning, blah, 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 reading rainbow crap, all that stuff. But it's right. That's the reality of it. As a result of that, when you do you always have to be right in the conversation with the disability judge, what happens is you'll start to notice that the judge is catering their questions in a more aggressive way in response to you, to cater to your, I have to be right and I'm always right and you're always wrong. And you don't want to get stuck in that power struggle. Just remember, they have all the power. They get to decide whether or not you're disabled. If they don't, then you have to spend all this time going to another judge to potentially get an approval, denial, or remand. So, they hold all the cards. They just do. Is it a bad system? Of course. Is it the system we have? Of course. Is it the system we're going to have tomorrow? Of course. The system we're going to have a year from now? Of course. It just is what it is. So just be aware of that, that egotistical, I'm right and you're wrong, da, da, da. Just be aware that you're not going to do well with your disability hearing if you run into that situation. Next one, you have tech limitations. So let's say that you're a claimant that's constantly moving, right? And they can't send you letters as to when they're changing your hearing, whether or not you can accept a waiver of a certain time limit, or if a motion was submitted, you should be able to access it. Or let's say there's not enough minutes on your phone, right? You've got one of those, free phones, which they're not really free, but you know what I mean. You've got one of those like minute phones, right? And you're always running out of minutes. And, a 45-minute hearing is going to take an hour and 20 minutes because there's this problem with your claim that makes it unique, or there's some sort of thing that arises that takes more time. Or perhaps an older phone or computer trying to do a video telephonic hearing. I've had claimants where they were trying to basically do the Windows system, the Microsoft system, to go ahead and do the video telephonic hearing, and then poof, they get into it, and all of a sudden it's not working. It could be a driver problem, it could be that the computer had some sort of internal issue, and then poof, now we got to reschedule the hearing. Which is why, from a technology standpoint, I almost always prefer the telephonic hearings, because everybody's got a telephone for the most part, unless there's like a minute limit requirement. But even then, the phone should be built to go ahead and allow phone calls to government without the minutes being taken off. But I've seen that go both ways. But the point here that I want to point out is that there's rarely people with a telephonic hearing having technology issues. But when you have a technology issue during your video telephonic hearing, or, which happens sometimes, the video telephonic hearing where you're sitting at the SSA office doing a video teleconference with a judge in like a different state, or honestly, you just go to, the hearing. Even when you go to a hearing in person, judges have technology problems all the time. All the time. Okay. They can't log in sometimes. Like literally, they can't log in. Their username, password, all that stuff has been corrupted. Now they can't access their files. Or perhaps they can't get the system started to go ahead and record the actual hearing. Or sometimes it's one of those things where they can't access the file inside the ERE. So, their stuff breaks all the time. But the point is, technology, it breaks all the time. Keeping that in mind when it comes to this whole situation, if you are technologically challenged, try to stick with either in-person or telephonic hearings. Those are going to be your two best bets for the whole situation. Now, the next video that we're going to be doing is talking about basically what types of claimants going forward into 2024 disability law firms are likely to reject, not represent. And the reason we're going to be going into that is because you need to know if you get rejected, it's not always because of who you are or what your impairments are. Sometimes there's other reasons related to essentially who you are, what's going on, what your impairments are, what your age is, that limit your ability to be represented by disability attorneys. And here's what's going on. And I'm just going to do a summary for you so that we can roll from this into the next video. When it comes to the current economy, everything's really expensive. Like when you think about like going and buying things at the grocery store, it's like that. But for businesses, when we go to the business grocery store, right? So when we're buying electronics, printers, computers, preamps and cameras and microphones and paper and pencils and this and that and that. When we go to the business grocery store, right? Everything is extremely expensive again, too. I mean, it's just obnoxiously expensive. So when we're getting hit from having to pay our employees and everything at the business grocery store is much more expensive, and everything at the home grocery store is also much more expensive. We are, as law firms, becoming more and more reserved with the types of claims we take, because taking those gray area ones where we might win them, we might not, is just something that's like, you're just basically paying a lot of money to have your staff work on something with the potential of them constantly getting denied. There's a tactic involved too that we're going to be going through in the next video that the government is using, and it does not look great for a particular political party, but I'll go through that and we'll catch you at the next video. Attorney Walter Hnot, if you do like these videos, please remember to like, don't be stingy with the likes, and subscribe, click the all button. For those of you who are members, I just figured out, by the way, how to find your membership questions inside the system. So for those that are members, I just figured out how to find your specific comment question. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get back to those. That way you guys have that going forward, because I couldn't actually access those until I figured out this weird little thing. I had to erase this and then update that, and then I was able to access them. Also, if you want to leave a review, we absolutely appreciate them. Disability Resolution is the law firm. Wow, my finger went the wrong way there. Disability Resolution law firm, or Florida. You just search in Google. We absolutely love those 5-star reviews or any review that you want to leave. I will catch you guys a little bit later, and I will see you at the next video shortly, and we will go from there. And remember, the third video is going to be about FAA, right? Federal Aviation Authority, and their attempt to go ahead and hire severely mentally impaired people. I'll catch you at the next video in about 5 minutes, and I'll see you soon. All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.